Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome everybody here and everybody that's remote also to our town hall. For those that don't know me remotely, my name is Pervez Qureshi. I'm on the Board of Trustees. We have other Board of Trustee members here also, Zaheer, Siddiqui, who I think most of you people know, and Muhammad Ali in the back. And also Board of Directors, ex-Board of Directors, Amr, you're ex, right? Ex. Mustafa is here, and Hanif Muhammad, alhamdulillah, is here also. So we're going to get started. We're breaking sort of all the rules for presentations and timing and everything else. So we're doing this on the last day of a 3-day weekend. Nobody normally shows up on the last day of a 3-day weekend, particularly on a Monday. And my slides are many and very wordy. They're not picture and short, right? So we're breaking all the rules. But part of the reason is we didn't get the appraisal report till Saturday morning. And the deadline is tomorrow for the due diligence. So we actually had no other time to do this. But I'm hoping everybody can see it today, or if they have questions, watch it thereafter. It'll be available. So it's a town hall. The purpose is actually not just the Livermore land status, but also what are we doing with the outside construction? Because for many months now we've been talking about it, and people have been asking and actually sending notes like, you promised this, where are you? What are you doing? Are you still doing it? Have you used all the money for something else? You know, those sorts of questions. So I want to answer all that. Plus we have some major changes in our construction we're doing inside. So we want to talk about that also, and the timing and where we are and all of that. Plus, then we'll just take Q&A. We've got a medley of people here that can answer many of the questions, inshallah. So I'm going to start with if you look at the right-hand side, that is the poster, so to speak, that we distributed everywhere, as many places as we could. And it talked about the land. More specifically, it talked about long-term benefits. That is to say, what are the uses we have for this property, right? And then on the left side is a little matrix, which is a more internal matrix, and that is, what's the most important use for this? Why are we actually buying this? And then what are the secondary benefits, right? In other words, if we're going to spend $9 million, we're not spending $9 million for a soccer football field. That is a benefit, right? Inshallah, that would be a benefit, but that would not be the reason why you're buying it. So why were we interested in this? Probably 3 sort of foundational reasons. One, of course, would be a cemetery, because we've said this many times, 5 Pillars is going to run out of space. Actually, in the next 2 years, if they don't get an expansion, and if they get an expansion, they'll run out of space between 2035 and 2040, which seems like a long time away, but it's not that far away. Right? It's been 13 years that we've been in this property. So the time comes and goes. So one important use was cemetery, or think of it as a backup cemetery, or think of it as a successor to 5 Pillars when they run out of space. The other purposes were a full-time school, K through 12, and a senior living. Right? Those are sort of the important uses. And then there were lots of other benefits that we listed, and you can read them at the bottom. Halal meat production, preschool, farmhouse, barn, Eid center, Eid event center, soccer fields, vegetable production, campgrounds, that sort of stuff, right? And then we also had this idea in mind, if you're going to have a senior housing, you should have some medical offices, right? So that was the idea. And you can see what was short-term, what was long-term. And we always said this was part of the Williamson Act, and whatever we do is going to take at least 10 years, because you have to get out of the Williamson Act. There's a period that you have to wait for. So that was going into it. And the question now is, what do we learn? Both from a land usage perspective, and then I was talked about the endangered species perspective, and also from an environmental perspective. What do we learn? Can we do all these things? Can we not do all these things, right? So the first set of topics have to do with land usage. The first bullet point is just the data. I think you already know. We signed on July 14th. The close date was August 13th. On the 12th, we extended the diligence date, which is tomorrow, and the close date is 9/12. Okay, so that's the new timing, if you will. And then during the last couple of weeks, a few weeks I should say, we've had some concerns that I mentioned in some of the after the Friday khutbahs, that we've had some concerns and we paid for some additional reports. So think about this as when you buy a house, you sign all the papers, you put a down payment, and then you do I got to do an inspection, I got to do this, I got to do this, make sure everything's okay. So that's the process we're going through. It's a little more detailed when it's such a big property, and the depth of what you have to go to is pretty, much, much more than you would in a house, right? Now recognize there is a house on this property also. So the questions were, and the areas we looked at is, what are the permitted uses for what's called A80? A means agricultural land, 80 means it's in parcels, minimum parcels of 80. Okay, there's some very strict rules of what an A4 can be used for, what an A20 can be used for, and what an A80 can be used for. And this is under the Williamson Act, which I'll talk about a little bit more. The second thing had to do with an environmental report. We did a phase 1, and that had to do with, well, there's supposed to be an oil drum here. There isn't an oil drum here. What happened to it? Is there a leak? How big a leak is it? Those sorts of things. And then the third was biological constraints caused by endangered species, right? So we got the report on that. And the last was the appraisal report. So I'm quickly going to go through these just to give you a sense of the depth. And to say this correctly, I think we basically scratched the surface, right? But enough to say, okay, this is what we should do. So A80, very explicitly exclusive agricultural district, exclusive agricultural use, okay? And the purpose is to protect areas for agricultural uses by preventing the establishment of urban and other incompatible things to agriculture, okay? So it is zoned as an A80 for that particular use. So that's the first restriction. The second restriction is it's the Williamson Act. So in February 28, 1971, the previous owners signed an agreement that said for the next 10 years, this is going to be in the Williamson Act, and we will not do anything other than agriculture or agricultural uses, and in return, our taxes are going to be very low. Okay. Now, the way that works is it's 10 years, but every year they add a year automatically. Okay, so it's always 10 years going forward. So if we buy it now, we have to keep it for 10 years with very limited sort of usages in terms of what we want to do, or we can pay them to cancel it. Okay. Now we have to go through a process. The cancel is not automatic, right? They may say no, then you go next year and ask for a cancellation again. They may say no, you wait another year and so forth. The cancellation fee is 12.5% of whatever you pay for the land. So it's $1.25 million, roughly. Okay. So we can either wait 10 years, right, and go through a cancellation process, no fee, or if we want to speed up things, we can pay $1.25 million and try to get out of the Williamson Act earlier. Right? Is that clear? Those are two choices. Okay. Then, as I said, the contract that was signed on February 28, 1971 was specifically, it says, agriculture and compatible use limited to food and fiber production. Okay. This language trumps any other language that is in the Williamson Act, that is in the A80, or any other thing the county has, because that's what the contract says. And it says very clearly, we're limited to this usage only, as long as you're in the Williamson Act. Okay, that's all we can do with this, right? So, just wait a little bit till I get to the point. I'm going to cover the next set of issues around land usage, and the next set, and then we can bring it back together again. So this is land designation and land restrictions. Okay. Now, this whole idea of A4 versus A20 versus A80, okay? Agriculture is defined up top, and everybody knows what agriculture is, right? Farming use, wholesale horticulture, dairy, livestock, plants, sheds, warehouses, a farm stand, farm dwelling, and also a detached single-family house, and any structures you need for the farming you're doing. That's all allowed, right? But if you go beyond that, you need a permit. And the permits for A20 cover a lot of things. The permits that are not allowed for A80, I mean, you cannot even ask for a permit. It's not allowed, right? Independent of the Williamson Act, right? Whether you're part of the Williamson Act or not, the A80 rules apply. So you cannot ask for a permit for a hospital. You cannot ask for a permit for a limosynary, which I looked up, which means charitable. It just means charitable. You cannot ask for a permit as a charitable, to be a charitable or philanthropic institution, or a convalescent home, or an animal hospital. You cannot even ask for that permit. You cannot ask for a permit to be a church there, or a religious institution, or a private school. So K through 12 is just out just because of that clause. Right? Because you cannot even ask for a permit, independent of the Williamson Act. These are just restrictions on A80, period. You cannot ask for a building for a club or activities for something that's half public, half private. For example, if we want to say we're going to have a soccer game, a soccer field all the time there, not allowed. We're going to have camping all the time, not allowed. You can ask for a temporary permit, like on this day I want to do this. You can ask for that. But you cannot say, look, I want to have this as a campground, is open 50 weeks a year. Absolutely not. By law, by the zoning, by the rules that go with 880. And you cannot have medical offices or dental offices, right? So when you look at that, you're saying, okay, I can't have if you go back to the important uses we said in the beginning, one of them was senior living. Well, that's not going to happen. Medical, that's not going to happen. K through 12 school, that's not going to happen. That leaves us cemetery, okay, in terms of potential uses, okay. Now, when I say it's not going to happen, what I mean by that is zoned this way. You can go to the county and ask for a zoning change. That is a political battle, right? Which means you have to know who the people are there. You have to elect them. You're going to have the votes to elect them. You've got to put the right people there. You got to make sure that there's money in there when they're running for whatever office they're running for. But it's that battle, right? It's not a mustard battle, if you know what I mean. It's not our business. But there is that battle. It has been won by many people. If you look at Windermere, but think of Windermere was the top builders in the country that got the zoning changed, and after many, many years. Okay. So you know where I'm going with this discussion, right? Now the other question is, can be used as a cemetery. So we sent this to the county planner, and in black it was their answer. But the key point is, a cemetery is in red. A cemetery is not compatible with uses permitted. Okay. Now, to be clear, you can do a cemetery if it's not in the Williamson Act. You can apply for one, but you have to be out of the Williamson Act first. So pay the $1.25 million and try to get out of it, or wait 10 years and then try to get out of it. But there's no guarantee. In other words, what they will do is say, yes, now we're going to have a public hearing, right? We're going to have a public hearing. We're going to say what the environmentalists say. We're going to see what our neighbors say. We're going to blah, blah, blah. Then we're going to decide whether to give it to you or not, right? Now, all I've talked about is usage. I haven't talked about, well, wait a minute, is there a endangered species I have to worry about if I do a cemetery? Right, so that's just step one. Can I get through the path? And the answer is, yeah, you can, but you have to wait 10 years, pay $1 million, right? And get their permission, work with the planners and get their permission, and there'll be a public hearing, and you have to go through all of those and get yes, 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 yes. But then there's one more, which we'll talk about here in a second. So this I already spoke about, right? The reds are we can't do. The orange is the cemetery, which I'm still talking about. And the greens are, yeah, we can do the greens. We can do halal food production, right? We can probably do an event center. I only say that because the neighbor next door has an event center. So if they have it, we can probably go through that process and get it also. Vegetable production, yeah, we can probably get vegetable production. But the reds are really, really out unless you completely rezone this place. The cemetery is still a question mark. Preschool is there. They say you can do it. I have a sort of a question mark, but they say it's there. They said yes. It's not really compatible with agricultural use. So one person said yes that we talked to, and the other person did not say anything about it, right? The reason I put that in the other category, you wouldn't spend $9 million for a preschool. Just, if it comes, it comes, but you wouldn't spend the money for that, right? You'd do something else. Okay, so quickly about environmental reports. So environmental report, this had to do with the possible oil drum that was missing. We spent money, did a phase 1. They said now you should do a phase 2, but a phase 2 you cannot do in the time frame that we had. So the recommendation from the person who did this was just ask for a $250,000 reduction in the price. That will more than cover the cost of this oil drum. Okay. So that's one sort of fact to note. The biological constraints, there's the left side and the right side. Let me talk about the right-hand side first. So this is either federal or state, endangered or threatened or concerned species. Any of those categories, right? The ones in red, the bio guys said, assume that it's there, it's present. Because it's present everywhere there in the neighbors and everything else. So just assume it's present. And we actually know the red-legged frog is there. We know the salamander is there. The orange ones are, your neighbors have it. It may be 2 miles away, maybe next door. We don't think you have it, but it's a suitable habitat. I should say habitat. It's a suitable habitat, meaning this land or your neighbor's land generally has whipsnakes, badgers, golden eagles, fairy shrimps, harriers, blackbirds, shrimp, and white-tailed kites, right? And then the other stuff is a low probability, right? So what's the process here? We just did the initial study. The initial study was what might be there. What you do after this, you do a detailed study. What is there? Then you work with the architect saying, okay, you want to do a cemetery, let's figure out where that cemetery is going to be exactly, and let's figure out how much land that's going to occupy, and let's figure out how much of these endangered species land is going to be endangered, either permanently or temporarily. And based on that, then we want you to go to 3 organizations, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, the California Nature Wildlife Service, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and negotiate how much you will pay because you are disturbing that habitat. And you may permanently disturb that habitat. Okay. So we're a much of them, right? I don't know about you, but I don't want to spend the next few years negotiating with the Corps Army of Engineers. And they said every situation is different, so it's an individual, right? But they did give us an example of fees. So the development fee per acre is, there are 2 fees. There's a mitigation fee and a development fee. A development fee per acre is anywhere between $8,000 and $17,000. And the mitigation fee is anywhere between $64,000 and $146,000 per acre. So if we're going to develop 20 acres, cemetery 20 acres, right? That's 20 acres is 5,000 per acre, right? So 100,000 people can be buried there, roughly, if I did the math right. You can see what that's going to cost, right? It's a rather large possible cost. It's a negotiation, so you go back and forth. And then if you end up saying, I'm going to put a little bit of land in a conservatory and not use it at all, then there's a fee reduction. But we don't know what that is. That's all about negotiation, right? So I'm coming to a conclusion. I think everybody knows what the conclusion is. Yeah. Oh, one more thing. The appraisal. We just got the appraisal on Saturday. It did come at 8.66 million, mashallah, which is actually pretty good. And in the appraisal, they say the highest and best use of this land, given the zoning, is single-family residence and do some sort of agriculture, produce some agriculture, make some money on that, and put an ADU. Those are all things that are allowed, and that will maximize the revenue you can get from here. Okay. Forget that last slide. Okay. So here's where we are. Our recommendation to the Board of Trustees is to not proceed with the purchase of this land because of the following reasons. One, this is a large piece of property, it's a large investment, right? People that are in the land business know, and as I do know when we bought property and we bought the building, we had actually 6 months to work with the seller to negotiate things and raise money and do all the due diligence. In this case, the seller is giving a very short time, right? So if we want to go further deeper into what about this, if then else, we just can't, right? And we can't even finish all of our study or this work we want to do. So that's one reason for saying let's pass. The second reason is it's $9 million. It's not $2 million, right? If it were $2 million, that's a small investment. The land is there, the house is there. We're more than covered. We're doing fine. But if it's a $9 million investment, and there's some additional cost of potentially with the Williamson Act or with the endangered species, this gets more and more expensive without a guarantee of a single one of your important uses. That's just, you know what I'm saying? You have to thread the needle through all these holes just to get everything perfect. And where we are, we just say, doesn't sound like this is the right decision to make. Okay. So now pause. Yeah. I'll repeat the question.
Oh no, teaching for a long time. Anyway, I'm blessed to be part of this community since early 90s. Many of my brothers, actually I know them. Again, I'm blessed to be part of this blessed community. I've been with this mosque and previous one time to time, directly, indirectly. So I think I had some questions, but my questions got vanished kind of, And most probably you can read my mind, even though I'm not in a position to buy that kind of millions-dollar properties, but actually I have some involvement buying properties in land, certain areas. My daughter is involved buying something with the salamander issues and all those things. These are nothing but serious headache. And I don't think, and I'm talking about a $1-2 million thing where you are going to make your property, the house. So as brother mentioned, that some things you can do within your limitation, but I don't think MCC in a business to negotiate with the lawmakers and all, that's not MCC, okay? So that's what actually your conclusion is almost like going what my question was, you already answered. So it is extremely complicated, especially the first one, the cemetery issue, right? Even that one is not clear. It's just orange. I rather want to say at this point, actually, there is a community, actually, Bengali community, actually, you might have heard this thing. We are already trying 160 acres land. It's almost in the final stage. God help us. We need your dua. Everybody, whoever is the Muslim, they can be buried there. That's in near Santanella. That's not the reason I'm here, but it's a relevant thing. So that's barely 1 million. Okay, 160 acre, and of course, you can say, oh, Santa Ana is far away. Trust me, these days nothing is far away. From San Jose area, people come here. It's like 1.5 hour distance in a traffic time. It's about 1.5 hour from here. So that is already, we are going through the environmental impact report. They call it EIR. It's kind of final, but it's still not final, you see. And that was like almost like 100% confirmed that we are gonna. So even that one has so many problems we are going through. So may Allah help us, guide us to get better opportunity in future. And I absolutely, from my shallow experience, and I've been a scientist for a very long time, from my research experience, that it could be actually a very good idea what you ended up with the conclusion.
Exactly.
That's all. Actually, my question was different, but everything boils down to the similar conclusion. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair. Any other questions on the land? I want to talk about what we're doing, construction, shift gears here in a second, but we'll take questions on the land.
Question.
Yeah.
It's online. Oh, okay. So you said that every year they will add another year.
Yes.
Okay. So if you do nothing and wait for 10 years?
No. What you have to do right away, you have to say, I'm going to cancel. And it goes before some committee, and they say yes or no. If they say yes, then you wait 10 years, and then you're out.
Got it.
If they say no, you wait another year, apply again to cancel, and you go through that process. If you cancel, it's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. I think there's a high probability, but there's no guarantee. Right? There's a process you have to go through.
Detailed presentation. Thank you. After we said, if we are out of Williamson Act with AAT, there's so many restrictions there that doesn't allow us to do so many things that we wanted to do. So that leaves us with something called cemetery. Right?
Yes.
It's as one big thing that we wanted to do. Everything else is just basically, halal meat production or vegetable production, or event center was not like at the highest in our list of priorities. So with just cemetery, even considering that also, 20 acres out of 400 acres was perhaps not even, why even bother at that time also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And that's why we've come to the
Yeah,
same conclusion.
so I think that's, I agree with that, recommendations. Yeah, thank you.
Mashallah. Okay, I want to keep, now please.
Area, the housing needs and the city population continues to grow. Do you anticipate any changes in the way cities look at relaxing some of these regulations?
Okay. So just because of the mic thing, the question was, we have limited land in the Bay Area because of the geographical settings, and therefore, as population grows, do we anticipate that the zoning may change? So, I mean, in the long run, the answer is yes, right? But in the long run, we live 70 years, 80 years, whatever it is, and we all die. And I don't mean that facetiously. I actually do mean that. So how long do we want to wait, right? The areas that are closer to Danville, if you're closer to a city, right, then you see you could annex. Goes on, but if you're further away, it's less likely. Unfortunately, this is in Contra Costa County, so this is further away from the key city areas there. It's not far from Costco and everything else, and all the development Los Positos and the housing behind Los Positos, but that's for a different county, right? So if that were, if we're in Alameda County, that would say higher probability because there's a lot of construction going on not too far away, but this is pretty far away. And there is a restriction Contra Costa County has. They want 65% of the land urban, they want 35% rural. So to change that, which is really what you'd have to change that requires, significant problems caused by lack of land. Right? Okay, we're going to keep going. We still have what time? What are we doing on timing, time-wise? Okay, good. So, I figured how much money we have collected either in Kazakhstan or in donations. So just to let you know, right off the bat, all MCC supporters who've given us either a donation or a Kazakhstan, which is an interest-free loan, they have an option of getting it back, 100%. Okay. Now, why do I say an option, right? Well, the next set talks about that, okay? So let's keep moving. I'm going to skip this a little bit. This has more to do with our vision. There are many ways of putting it on paper. This is one way, and I don't think we've completely agreed to the best way. So we can skip this, or if we want to come back to it, we'll come back to it. But I do want to talk about what are we actually doing, okay? And this was made about, the left side has been done a while ago, but the right-hand side was done after we got the land. This is a way of thinking about what are we actually doing now, okay? So our priority one in terms of day-to-day right now is your first item on the top, on the left, which is outside recreational activities, basketball/picnic area, et cetera, et cetera. That's the top priority, okay? That, by the way, has been the top priority and has not changed because of the land stuff, right? We have separate money put aside for some of this, not for all of this. Now, where we are on that, unfortunately, I have a very terrible diagram, which is this. We are going back and forth. This has been submitted to the Hacienda Housing Association, Owners Association, Hacienda Owners Association in Jim Paxton. And we're going back and forth with questions and answers at a very detailed level, right? Detail level has to do with what color is this stone going to be. Detail has to do with telling me the name of every bush and tree you're going to have here. Detail has to be with, for example, we spent a week arguing with him. He wanted the basketball court that's shown over there taking the place of the empty land and the empty land being on the other side. And we said, no, this is where the smaller kids are going to play, and we want that contained. We don't want that at the edge of the property, right? But that was a week of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, arguing, and he finally relented. Now he's arguing we wanted a big fence on one side of the basketball court so the basketball courts don't go, the ball itself doesn't go over. He goes, no, the max fence you're going to have is 6 feet high. We're saying, that doesn't work because the ball will just go over 6 feet high. It's just not good enough. So now it's like, okay, now we're arguing about the net and the color of the net and the height of the net. By the way, this is just the housing, I keep saying housing, Hacienda Owners Association. Right after this, it goes to the city. The good news is if it gets through James Paxton, I'm told it usually gets to the city, right? Because he's the one that has the caring for what goes on here. The issue they have, by the way, the Owners Association has is they still think of this as an office park. And we say, that's wonderful, but we're not an office, we're a masjid, and we have our uses, and there are other schools here close by, and they have their uses. So you have to think about this more broadly, James, right? So that's the perspective. I'm not saying one is right or wrong, but that's the different perspectives, okay? Now, if you look at this, there are, by the way, 25, if I remember the right number, EV stations. They're not going to be type 3 because we don't have the electric generation literally here to support 25 EVs going on simultaneously. I think they're either type 1 or type 2. I think they're type 2. They're here. The number of parking slots is, I think, -1. So that's the only, we put all this in place. Parking slots have only gone down 1. There are more narrow parking spots. Some of them are more narrow and some of them are the same size. So there's some pluses and minuses there. The picnic area is completely getting redone. And the area that I'm going to point to here, for those that are here and anybody that's showing, for this area right here is, if you could see that area, which is where the sort of, you know, when the ladies come in, there's that overhang area outside. Actually, it's straight here, right? Think of it where the garage door used to be. We're going to have a cafe there, inside and outside, and very much meant to be a third space, right? So both inside and outside on one side, and picnic area on the other side. So that's all going through. We don't have an exact cost, but this will cost a lot more than we thought, largely because they're making us change all sorts of things that we had really not planned to change. But I suspect this will be in the $500,000 range when we're all said and done with it, right? This is even though we have 9,000 square feet of flooring that's been delivered to us free, right, from our friends in Talco in San Jose. There's a Turkish company. I go there, he goes, just take whatever you want, no charge. Right, so mashallah. So this is, I know there's a lot of questions. Is this going to happen? The answer is yes. We're working on it. My hope is we can get through all of the permit process and everything else this calendar year and actually start construction early next year. But it's going to depend on what the city already has in cycle and how quickly they can respond to us. Okay. And for those of you in construction, I know this is taking a long time, but for any of you in construction, you know this is how it is. And it is very, very hard to get construction people right now. They're just not available, right? Or they say they're available and they don't show up. It's just not as easy as I would like it to be. So that's one thing that's going on. The pictures get worse, by the way. This was actually a pretty good picture. Let's go back to here. So that's the outside, this is the stuff with the green on the left-hand side. That's the outside recreational activity, basketball, picnic, etc. We are doing a banquet hall, we are doing kitchen, we are doing a cafe, we are doing a lobby, we are doing a library, youth centers, additional conference rooms. Here's the new news. We are also doing a second story, inshallah, for the school. So we want the Sunday school to be upstairs, not above here, not above the masjid, not above this conference room, but all that back area where the Sunday school is today will be upstairs. It'll be 25 classrooms upstairs and a staircase, actually 2 staircases coming in and an elevator. Okay, so yes, we gained a lot of room, but we lost a little room because you have 2 staircases and you have an elevator you have to build also. Just to show you that it exists, I know this is impossible to read, but the hashed area is the roof line, right? So if you look outside, you see these tiles. That's the hashed area all around. And the only place that is the second story is where all these classrooms are, and there are 25 classrooms there. The top part, if we look at the top part, I'm going to point to this here. This is an outside staircase. This is an outside staircase, and there's an elevator once you get inside. That's the design. This has not gone through this. This is a separate submission to the Hacienda Owners Association. We're doing the outside first, and this submission afterwards. Then the other thing, now that we do, this is a very hard drawing, and so I'll just describe it versus the nomenclature, the names are not here. Now that we are going to say upstairs is Sunday school, what are we going to do with all this area here? Right, good question. So there are multiple things we're going to do. First of all, we're going to have another room about half of this size, so that when this room is being occupied, because we have all sorts of talks going on. There's one more room we're going to have, about half of this size, for talks like this. Okay, so that's one usage. The other thing you're going to see, and it's hard to see, but it's, you can see it in here, but it's a little hard. If you look at two areas here, and for those of you that can't see it, on that side, look at this area here. This is next to the bathrooms. Okay. This is a men's lounge and gym area. So the idea is youth can have a ping pong table, a billiards table, TVs for games or whatever, and also some parts of a gym. So just a lounge, hangout area. At the same time, on this side of the other bathrooms, which is right behind us, there's a women's area. There's a lounge area to hang out, and some gym equipment also. Okay. Next to the women's area, we would put the parent, ignore this drawing, we would put the parents' child room, and we'd also have a kiddie area, with kiddies meaning small kids that are with parents, and then a separate area for kids that are a little bit older, but they don't need to be with parents. Okay. Notice what I'm saying. This part of the masjid is women's, parents, kids. This part of the masjid, we're separating the men's lounge area from the women's lounge area. There are two parts of the masjid. One is there and one is here, on purpose. Okay. And then, I won't go through this in detail, we do have a multi-purpose room, we have a library. This is the entry to all of this, and all of this is 357, I think, seats for a banquet hall. And then this area is an industrial kitchen, and this area outside here is a cafe. Okay. So this drawing is probably on its last legs, this one and the Sunday school. And then we'll submit that probably in the next month and a half, 2 months. Okay. Now, I'm almost coming to an end. Let me just go back to this slide. So, what you should see by the end of next year, inshallah, maybe a little bit of 2025, is the outside recreation area, the banquet hall, the lobby, the library, the youth conference, the centers, the gym, second story school, and also this is the important part. The second story school is being designed so that the Sunday school rooms can be used both as a Sunday school room and also a weekday classroom. Literally, what that means is you take what's, you know how every school designs the walls, have all these papers and stuff on the walls, right? The idea is you could just flip the board. And now you have third grade, flip the board, and you have first grade Sunday school, right? So what that means is, when we get this done, we'll have the facility to have K through 5. Okay? The reason that's important is that has always been part of our mission statement. If you go back, and Zaheer is here, and Muhammad Ali is here, MCC was founded on 3 things. We want to have a worship area, we want to have a social area, which is a kind of a banquet hall, and we want to have a education K through 5. Okay? So that doesn't mean we're ready next year for K through 5. That just means we'll have a facility. There's a whole other process of where you go to teachers, what's the curriculum going to be, is MCC going to do it, or are we going to work with somebody else to do it? All those questions are open. Right? But we want to make sure we have the facility. The second thing up top, if I'm in the middle portion of this, is we are working with 5 Pillars Cemetery to see if we can have a partnership with them. So we'll see where that goes. And we should start thinking about renting. If we're going to have a K through 5 here, we should start thinking about how do we do a 6 through 12, right? And it won't be in this facility, but we can rent something or buy something. If we're not going to buy $9 million worth of land, let's go buy something else that makes sense for us to do. And everybody knows The school demand is incredibly high now because of everything that's being taught, and nobody wants to send kids to public school here. And I forgot to mention the last point on the left-hand side is, we need a Friday prayer place, right? So right now we have Dublin Library. How long that's going to continue, we don't know. So we need to continue looking and either rent a second site or buy a second site, whatever comes and makes sense to do. Okay. I'm going to pause. Yeah.
You can repeat my question. The short-term part of the roadmap is 2023, 2024. Assuming that the permits, so I'll repeat the question. So for the short-term part of this roadmap, 2023, 2024, assuming that the permits part can be done by the end of this year, do we anticipate the construction to be completed through 2024?
Well, that's a good question. I think it'll come in phases. So first of all, we'll need more money to even do the outside stuff completely. Because we raised $300,000 for that, not last year, the year before, of which $100,000 went for all sorts of things, including the HVAC. Remember we talked about this, the HVAC units, some of the parking stuff we did, and there were some other things we had to do also. So we had $200,000 sort of allocated, it's still being held for that. It'll probably cost closer to $500,000. The second story will probably cost $1.5 million. Okay, so we need to raise the money. So this year, we really want to show, our initial plan was make sure you can show some progress on the outside stuff, and then go to the community for money. Right, because you got to prove you're doing what you can do and, get trust. We may have to go a little half and half. And what we're asking for those people that don't need the money, well, that's a bad way of saying it, but those people that can spare the money and donate it to MCC and shift your money that was going to the land, not Kaza Hasna, actual donations, or Kaza Hasna turned into donations. We would like to do that, but there's no pressure on that. You need the money back, khalas, right? No pressure on that. Yeah, there's a question behind you.
Expand a little bit on the partnership with 5 pillars, please.
I think I asked my question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I was hoping not to answer that question, actually. Yeah, the question was expand on the partnership with 5 pillars. Back in March of this past year, in terms of when they shut down. They shut down in March of this past year. There was an issue with their permit, let's just say that. They came to us, and we've been working with them, okay? We just haven't come to an agreement that both sides are comfortable with yet, but we'd like to come to an agreement where there's some sort of partnership, and there's a lot we want to do with it, right? If we can get it. The only situation in which we would get it, in addition to their okay, would be if there's expansion. If we could actually get right now there are only 5 acres being used, and their permit expires this October, and then they have to apply for expansion, and they have another 12 acres available to expand. If that happens, then we very much want to be involved because we want to take the operation up significantly. We want to improve the place. We want to put a place to pray. We want to put, a place where we can store the body. We want to be able to have a janazah prayer there. There are a lot of things you want to do, and they're very open to it. We just have to figure out, can we, is the county going to give us the extension, and what is our relationship going to be with them? So, alhamdulillah, we'll see where that goes. Yeah, question?
Can I? Yeah.
Just hold it very close.
It's my opinion, not the question. As a father of 2, I think the most important 2 things to me right now, the education direction, what they teach our kid in the school, this is the next generation. How I is probably second priority. The thing is that how my children will grow up. That is the thing I'm going to accept Allah. How I'm going to, we can buy anywhere. So if I put my priority is that the K-12 to K-5 to K, the most priority, and the youth education, how we grow up. Because the body probably, if you give me the priority, it can be my third priority.
Yeah.
So if you make priorities on the K-12 for our next generation, it will be, I think this is the most important thing to our life. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Yeah, we did a survey, right? And the survey we did, times may have changed, but the survey we did about a year ago was the outside basketball was like the highest priority of all the items. That is not to say the K through 12 is not important. Sister Shazia. No, you need to use it.
Okay, my question, what about doing the ghusl area here? Getting the ghusl area here?
The
Ghusl
body,
for the body.
For the body.
Sorry.
No. First of all, we don't have space. Right, space is a real problem. And two, if we get that, if we're able to get a partnership, we'll inshallah put it there. Anybody, did you have a follow-up question or comment?
I think based on going through your short-term plan explanation and what we need to get done during the short term, it seems that it would go easily into 2025. So I think you probably want to perhaps change and beyond probably, right? So
what I would do is merge short-term / intermediate term as one column, and that'll take care of it.
Right. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
And for everybody who's listening, forget 24, make sure that's 25.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
I just want to mention for those people who would like to get their money back. Yes, I know. So some of you may be thinking, okay, how do we get our money back? So what you have to do is send an email to finance@mcceastbay.org, and we will set up a time to meet with you at the finance office. And if you've given Kharze Hasna and you want that back, then please bring the promissory note that we provided, and inshallah we will give you a check. So you do need to make an appointment and meet with either me or Brother Samer, who's the treasurer, and inshallah we'll make arrangements to return your funds.
I think the point is none of those funds have been used, right? So they're
absolutely. They're in a separate account, and we'll be happy to return the funds to whoever requests it. Jazakallah.
Returning the funds is, of course, one of the options, but what about using the money to buy another property?
Sure, it's always sure, but we don't know when we're going to buy the property at what time. So I don't think we don't want to be in the business of holding people's money without knowing where the property is now, or 6 months from now, or 2 years from now, right? What we would like to do, though, is use that money for two things that are going to be important. One is the K through 5, the school, right? And as I said, that's going to cost $1.5 million. And that's sort of rough numbers right now. And the shortage we're going to have on the outside stuff. And I haven't even talked about the banquet hall, the kitchen, and all those things. So those all cost money, right? Our initial thought was the inside stuff, when we were not doing the school, was the inside stuff would cost about $1 million, and the outside stuff would cost $200,000. We're at $1.2 million. Now it looks like the outside cost will cost $500K. The school will cost $1.5 million, so that's $2 million, and probably $750,000 for $500,000 for everything else. So It's about a $2.5 million rough cost, phased over between now and 24 and 25. But alhamdulillah, I think as we show progress, the community has always been willing to give, right? As we're willing to give. And, we want to be very careful how we use the money. And Saeed Bhai, who's head of the construction committee, is very good about how he uses the money. And then we're also careful about, we try to get as much stuff free as we can. And I mean good stuff. I don't mean like bad stuff, right? Good stuff free as we can. So that's the second thing. And then the third is we want to do something that actually looks good too, right? And by that I mean, there's always been beauty in our religion. So you don't want to do something that, we did it quickly, but it was cheap. It looks cheap, right? Because we want people coming here saying this is a nice place, right? So that's where we are. We'll probably do a fundraiser. We have to decide as a board. We'll probably do a fundraiser later on this year, once we have everything a little bit tied down a little bit more, so we can go to everybody and say this is what we need. Yes.
So the money which is already there, right? I mean, which is collected for the land, which is long term, right? So
yes.
I heard that there is an option to return back to people who want to, right?
Yes.
So we can give that option, right? That okay, we have a short term and intermediate plan. So are you okay to use that money?
Oh, absolutely. That's our request.
Yeah, that's why. That's why, like, we can reutilize the money, because anyway we are looking for the funds, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
the money is there, right? We can use that, and then if inshallah something comes up long term, then we can go for a fundraiser.
Say everybody get his name, please. Ibrahim.
Yeah.
With Jazakallah khair. I'm joking, everybody. I'm joking. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Yes, we'll take one last comment, because then we should. What time is prayers? 9:15, or what time is it? 9:30. Okay.
I have the same opinion. So for the intermediate one, so if for example, if you have the money that people donate, what is the plan? For example, if my preference is to go for like K5 is my preference. For example, if I want to transfer that to the K5, or whatever we did, how can I do that?
It's very difficult to put us in a situation to say this money is for this money is for this money is for this.
Or maybe intermediate plan.
Yeah. The sequence is going to be the outside stuff,
Okay.
the school,
Yeah.
and then the other inside stuff. That's the sequence. Okay. Because one is ahead of the other, and you don't want to slow it down to do this, right?
I see.
So that's the sequence. And right now, we have to talk as a board, but I don't think we want to do Qarz Hasna for construction. At least that's our thinking right now. So anybody that wants to convert Qarz Hasna will do that, or anybody's given a donation and wants to use the donation from land to project. Everybody's going to say that to everybody. Hey, we'll take your money back, we'll give your money back completely, or if you want to donate, here are your choices.
There is an email from Zaheer Bhai or anybody, I will transfer, or what, how can we proceed for that one?
You have to talk to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll talk to him. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, got it. Okay, sure, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
And final thing that
Yes.
when I go to like normally sometime from my work I go to like Fremont Mosque or like MCA. So I saw the mosque inside. Actually, they're beautiful. Like, there's a plan to improve the wall of our prayer hall and maybe
so the prayer hall. First of all, the ceiling is going to go up 2 feet, and then there's going to be a rotunda, and it's going to go up another 2 feet. Okay, with skylights. And then there's going to be a design. We have another design. It'll be design, not that different than what you see out there. It'll be designed inside the masjid also.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How do we turn this stuff off now? Okay, thank you.